We're in number 7 of your CPR training here today. And the seventh important thing for you to do in order to have a great launch is to set yourself up for, here's the blank, set yourself up for success. Set yourself up for success. And that means now that you've built it, people are there, you're making good impressions, you've spent the money, you've got the team, you've got all these things working. You got to make sure that you have good government so this thing can happen for a long time. Now, without spending a lot of time on this seventh one, in fact, we're not even going to do any Q&A after this seventh one. I'm going to give you the eighth one as well, and we'll do Q&A for both at the end. But let me just give you this seventh one very, very briefly. And that is, we do recommend a certain style of government. Your government does not have to be exactly like Church of the Highlands or the ARC recommendation, but there are some governments that we just simply will not get involved in because they don't work. And no matter what kind of model you create, it's just not going to work. We say good government's going to include 3 things, and this is kind of the basis for the government that we recommend, and that is that there's staff leadership, pastoral leadership. So the day in, day out ministry decisions are not made by a board. They're not made by a denominational head. They're not made by a group of lay people in the church on some kind of committee. No, it's led by pastors. We see that as the consistent pattern in Scripture. And so we believe in pastoral staff leadership in the day-to-day ministry decisions and ministry matters. So for us to make a decision on spending money and vision and direction of this church, I don't go before any committee or board or anything like that. That's the decision of the pastoral team of this church, the pastoral staff of this church. The elders, in the Bible, pastors and elders were the same people. They weren't 2 different groups. They were the same people. You look at it throughout. So that's how we lead the church that way. But every group that leads just needs accountability to make sure things are done well and properly. And so you don't need control, but you need accountability. And there's a big difference. So we have groups, outside groups, 2 that we're going to give you, and one of them is internal and one of them is external that provides accountability, but they're not dictating control of the direction of the church. And that is, we have an internal, what we call trustees, is the blank there for number 2, trustees. That's an internal group of a board or elders in our church and in the ARC model that are overseeing the financial matters of the church. Again, they're not telling us how to spend the money, but they are the ones who conduct an independent audit of the church every year. They are the watchful eye over the shoulder to make sure things are done well and that there's nothing done improper or immoral or unethical. And so they also serve in a formal capacity as advisors to the pastoral staff and to the senior pastor, in my case. And they have exclusive power in one role, and that is to put the church in any financial obligation. And that's not something that anybody on the staff, including myself, can do in our bylaws. What's required is if I want to obligate the church, that means borrow money or sign leases. If I want to obligate the church, then it requires a vote of the Board of Trustees, their approval. Our bylaws restrict them because we created a ceiling because they could get overambitious and overcommit the church. So we wrote in restrictions into the bylaws, but it requires a resolution of the Board of Trustees to borrow money and build buildings and those kind of things in our world. Where the senior pastor has leverage and influence is only the senior pastor can bring up what the agenda items themselves. So I am the chairman of the board, but I don't have a vote. So I set the agenda. Here's what I would like to borrow money on, but they make the decision, should we borrow money on it? So they can't bring in ideas. I can't decide whether we do it or not. And that's the balance of the powers, and it works beautifully, all right? Beautifully. So you have a balanced system so that pastors can lead, but they still are ultimately accountable, and that's very important. The only thing that is missing in this is the accountability to the pastor himself, and that's the only place I don't think there ought to be internal accountability. I think there needs to be external accountability, because in my mind and in our mind at the ARC, it's improper for sons to correct fathers. Now, to advise and to be involved in these financial matters, that's different. But when it comes to me personally, I need somebody over me correcting me, not somebody under me correcting me. And that's why we have an external, what we call overseers, who the senior pastor is accountable to. They're there to protect the senior pastor. And these, in our case, are 5 senior pastors or senior ministry leaders outside of our organization, and so they're external, that I am personally accountable to. So if I start preaching heresy, or if I have any moral failure, or have any financial impropriety, they can be alerted by the members, the elders, the staff, the trustees. Anybody internally can alert them, but they are the ones who conduct the investigation and then discipline me if that's needed, and exercise any type of discipline there. So there's really basically no one in the church that can fire me. And that's fair because they didn't hire me. But those that outside that I've set up as an accountability system, they definitely can. They can remove me, discipline me, whatever it takes. And then if something that wasn't moral like that, it was tragic, like I was killed in a wreck or something like that, or happened to me, it would be the overseers who actually converge on this campus to pastor out. All 5 of them would show up at the same time, take care and love on this church, and then oversee the 2-year-long mourning process for the loss. No, but they would come in and then they select candidates, and then once again the internal makes the selection. Yes, so we don't even have any internal groups picking new pastors. If I had needed to be replaced because of discipline or death or retirement, that's not a pulpit committee that people who don't even know what ministry is like trying to go find candidates. It's seasoned ministers finding candidates that's ratified and confirmed by the internal elders, pastors, trustees, and things like that. So that's how that basically works. So you have leadership and then internal and external control. And here's the critical question. It's what you want in good government. And we're not going to be a part of churches that do not have a government that has both freedom and accountability at the same time. You want both freedom and accountability. Some systems have tons of accountability, no freedom. Some have a bunch of freedom, no accountability. We have to have both. And so that's our little teaching on setting yourself up for success. I'm just throwing it out there to you. As we plant a church, don't forget how you set up the leadership structure, because you could have done all that hard work for nothing if you didn't spend a lot of time laying the groundwork for success by having good church government. Okay.